Okay, chapter 4, lesson 3 talks about functions. So function notation looks a little different than what we've seen before. It looks a little scary, but I promise you that it's not. So this right here is function notation. You see this F, which talks about a function, and then you've got an X right here. This is read F of X. The function of X equals 15x. So F of X equals 15x. Now, what I have told my kids in the past, just because F of X looks a little scary, it does take the place of what? What usually is in front of that equation that looks like that? A y. So F of X for our intents and purposes means y. Same thing. So how would you graph y equals 15x? Well, the same way you'd graph F of X is equal to 15x. So whenever you are later asked to graph these, that's what you're going to be doing. But for right now, it's just asking you to recognize the function notation. Okay? So the F of X right here, this is the output. Or what's another word we use for output? Range. So F of X stands for the range. Okay? And remember that X is the domain. Those are the numbers that you can put in. Right? Those are the inputs. Okay. So with that being said, let's look at example 1. Find f of negative 3 if f of x equals 2x plus 1. So just looking at this part right here, what do you notice? That they replaced an x with a negative 3. So if they replaced x with negative 3, then that's going to be your job. Come right here and replace x with negative 3. So you'd have 2 times negative 3 plus 1. So f of negative 3, that just stays right there, f of negative 3 is equal to negative 6 plus 1 or negative 5. This is your answer. Don't be caught up in the fact that there's still a number over there and you think you have to do something to it. That's a function of negative 3. That's like a label. Okay? So I want you to try A and B right there and come back to me. So on A, it says f of 2. Find f of 2 if f of x is equal to x minus 2. So we are replacing all the x's with the 2. So f of 2 is equal to 2 minus 4. So that means f of 2 equals negative 2. Okay, so negative 2 is your answer. Next one, f of 11 if f of x is equal to 1/2 x plus 5. So f of 11, and then we're replacing our x over here with an 11 plus 5. So f of 11 is equal to 1/2 of 11 is 5.5 plus 5. So my answer, 10.5. Okay, so if you don't get caught up in the fact that you've got f of x's and replacing things, you should be good. Okay? So let's erase that and move on down and see what else this has in store for us. All right, we talk about function tables. All right, we've talked about tables before. We've had XY charts. But notice on this one's a little different, just in the fact that, again, domain, they have an x, but guess what they have for range? They've replaced our normal y with f of x. That's why I told you earlier they are interchangeable. Okay, so f of x stands for y, today, tomorrow, and always. All right, so you can put them in a function table. But now this is the key part that I really want you to get out of this. An independent variable is different than a dependent variable. Think about right now, if you are in 8th grade, you are not independent. You may think you are, but I guarantee you if mom and dad put you out of the house, you would have to have somebody with assistance, somebody who would pay rent, somebody who could drive you places, somebody who would buy you food, clothes on your back. 8th grade, you have very little means of being independent. So that's why you are dependent upon your parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends, somebody to help you. Later, as an adult, you are hopefully independent. You can make your own money, pay your own bills, drive yourself places, make legal decisions, vote. That would be independence. So independent, dependent variables, same kind of meaning. So whenever you talk about x's and y's, which one is dependent on what the other one happens to be? So if you look at this chart right here, I've got the domain x is -2, -1, 0, 1. We can make these up. These can be anything we want. And if we're the one making the rules, then that means that x is independent. Range. Well, the function of x, these answers right here depend on what domain is. So if this is -2, sure, this is the answer. But if we choose -1, then that changes. What if we pick 20? Then this answer over here would be 25. So the range, or the y, are dependent. So domain x, independent, range f of x or y, and they are dependent because they depend on what you put in for x. So in example 2, it says choose 4 values for x to make a function table for f of x equals x plus 5. So you could pick anything right here, but I'm going to tell you this. I would pick numbers that are easy to use. I always pick -1, 0, and 1. Because what's easier to multiply than 0? Nothing, because it's always going to be at 0. And then, of course, you got 1. That's pretty easy. And if it says 4, well, you could pick 2, -2. If you want to pick 87, 513, 8085, feel free to pick those. But I will tell you, whatever you pick, you also may later have to graph and work with. So if I am substituting in letters or numbers for x, I'm going to make it as easy on myself as possible. So if they pick -2, -1, 0, 1, they put those in right there for the x's. -2 plus 5, 3. -1 plus 5, 4. 0 plus 5, 5. 1 plus 5, 6. So those are our y's, or f of x. All right, so our domain right here, put in order. Range right here, put in order. It says then state the domain and range. So you would actually have to write it out like this. Domain is, range is. Okay? Scroll on to the next page. All right, so pause it. Try it for C. All right, back with me. It says you could choose 4 values. So if it were me, I would pick something easy. Pick something easy. My favorites, 0, 1, 2, why not pick a 3? All right, so 0 minus 7, -7. 1 minus 7, -6. 2 minus 7. Yep, 2 minus 7 is -5. 3 minus 7, -4. So you would then state the domain and range. So you would say domain equals, make sure you are putting them in braces. 0, 1, 2, 3. Range. Corresponding range, -7, -6, -5, -4. Now, they won't always be one apart from each other. It just happens to be like that because I chose ones that are one apart and we are not multiplying anything. Okay. Let's move on to the next part. It says there are approximately 770 peanuts in a jar of peanut butter. The total number of peanuts, P of J, is a function of the number of jars of peanut butter, which is J. Identify the independent and dependent variables. All right? So, since the total number of peanuts depends on the jars of peanut butter, so you're going to have, if you pick 7 jars of peanut butter, then the number of peanuts depends on that. If you pick 28 jars of peanut butter, the number of peanuts depend on that. So that means that the jars is the dependent, because that's the one you have control over, and then the number of peanuts. So that would be an independent variable. So the number of peanuts that you're talking about is dependent because it depends on how many jars you choose. So number 4 here says, what values of the domain and range make sense for this situation? So think about what numbers you could put into a table. Can you have 7 jars of peanut butter? Sure. Can you have 3.5 jars of peanut butter? Do they sell them in half jars? You don't ever consider that. Could you have 2.2579 jars of peanut butter? No. So whenever you consider them, only whole numbers make sense because you're not allowed to buy a fraction of a jar. If I saw half a jar of peanut butter sitting on the shelf, there is no way I would buy it. That's for sure. So then if it talks about the range, then the range have to be multiples of 770. Why 770? Because it says that there's 770 peanuts in every jar. So how many ever jars you buy, it's going to be multiples of 770. You just multiplied the two. All right, so number 5 says, write a function. Write a function. So the number of peanuts, that's P of J, the number of peanuts is equal to 770J. So 770 per jar, 770 times that. Okay? So you just got to get over the vocab that goes with this and how they ask the question, and you should be fine. So I think with that, you're good. If you want some extra practice, I want you to go ahead and try these right here. You can pause it, try it, come back, and I will have some answers for you. How about that? All right, go ahead and pause these, please. All right, back with me. If you did guided practice number 1, you would find that your answer should be -2. Okay? Now, for number 2, if it says choose 4 values, obviously your values are all going to be different. But whatever values you pick, you just have to put them in right here. Whoops, I did that part backwards. You're going to put them in right there, but it's going to be 8 minus whatever you choose. So if it's 8 minus and you happen to choose a negative, you have to do a minus minus. 8 minus 0, 8 minus 1, 8 minus 2. So your f of x, your corresponding value, minus minus would be a plus. 9, 8, 7, 6. So the domain at -1, 0, 1, 2. Range is our f of x, or if you want to consider it a y, that's fine too. 9, 8, 7, 6. That's domain and range. So number 3, a hot air balloon can hold 90,000 cubic feet of air and is being inflated at 6,000 cubic feet per minute. Total cubic feet of air is a function of the time. So air is a function of the time. So that means that air is dependent. So air is dependent because it depends on how long you inflate it, right? So that means that time independent. So what values make sense? Well, the domain could be any positive number, but it will only hold 90,000 cubic feet. So you could say there would be any whole number greater than 0 and less than 90,000, because if you put any more than 90,000 in it, it'll explode. All right, so write a function to represent the total amount of air. It says that air is a function of time. So that would be 6,000, what do we say, 6,000 cubic feet per minute, and so 6,000 T. So do it in 6 minutes. It'd be 6 times 6,000, 36,000 cubic feet. Okay, so with this, let's just talk real quick about this last one, sorry. How does the domain affect the range in time? Domain, we say inputs, those are independent, affect range. So whatever you choose for domain affects range. So range is dependent. Range is dependent upon the domain. We've talked about that before. Y is dependent on X. All right, so with that, have any questions tomorrow? See me. Good luck.